All this and a whole lot more on today's Know the Cause. Hey, welcome to the show. Kyle and I want to read a few things from the newspaper, some from the scientific literature, as we open today's show. Cystic fibrosis news today. Look at the headline, detecting fungus in the cystic fibrosis patient. About 50% of these patients, they're finally, folks, coming to their senses. I've been screaming that cystic fibrosis, right, have a lung fungal condition, and nobody listened. Finally, they drew some blood and said, okay, these people do have. And Aspergillus is the fungus. It makes a very devastating mycotoxin that can kill people. And I really have to tell you, it's about time we're starting to look at asthma, COPD, restrictive lung problems, breathing problems, and cystic fibrosis as a potential lung problem. So as doctors said, breathing mold isn't good for anyone, let alone a CF patient. It's what caused the CF, I believe. What did you find?
This came from USA Today. It says, loosen your belts. The U.S. waist sizes, that means your belly, continues to expand. Journal of the American Medical Association checking out 37,000 people, and it says that the average man's waist has grown to 39.7 inches. So that's the average man's waist. Average woman's waist, 37.8 inches. And it says that this has grown significantly. The new study shows that 43% of men and 64% of women are in the abdominal obesity zone. That's just a certain amount of belly fat. And I think, and the problem is they have no idea why. They really don't know what to do about it. They've never been told, you know, there's this fungus link in one of Doug's old books, it was called What Makes Bread Rise? Could that be what's making you rise? And I think that was a really good question to ask because it put fungus in people's minds for the very first time as it relates to weight loss.
Not enough people got it. What makes bread rise? You know, people be scratching their head. Gee, I wonder what the yeast that causes bread to rise makes you rise also. Remember, antibiotics are growth promoters. That's why we give them to cows, right? So as you took antibiotics when you were young or for acne or one thing or another, 10, 20 years later, there you go. And by the way, the book is now called The Fungus Link
to Weight Loss. And that's a big, and by the way, when you said growth promoters, did I tell you about my wife has a friend, went to the doctor because she had exceptionally low blood pressure. And the doctor, you'll laugh at this, but it really happened. She has low blood pressure. The doctor prescribed for her hormone replacement therapy in order to fatten her up. And she said the reason is because when you become overweight, your blood pressure will rise. That was his cure for low blood pressure.
You say I'll laugh. Nothing shocks me that goes on in medicine anymore. Here's Wall Street Journal. Should you get cancer screenings? And they're saying doctors on both sides of the debate, because for decades you didn't have a side. You're going to get a colonoscopy, you're going to get a mammogram, you're going to get a PSA test, and now even doctors are starting to get, are these things as accurate as we thought they were? You've seen Dr. Richard Ablin on a show. He wrote a book called The Great PSA, The Great Prostate Hoax. It never was a prostate cancer test, and yet many men have suffered because of it. The mammogram, 58% reliable. It's almost a coin flip. And we should be big boys and girls, keep ourselves healthy. If you have a 39-inch waist, women or men, get out there, follow. This show not only begs the headlines, it begs what you can do about the headlines as well. You can take charge of those weight problems. I got out this morning, Ruth and I, and jogged a couple of miles. Just feel great.
And if everybody could do that and make sure that they're getting the right food day in and day out, like this story, it was talking about there's a new standard when it comes to the National School Lunch Program. They've supposedly made it a lot healthier, and I misread the headline because I thought it said registered dietitian is outraged by it.
Oh, no.
She was outraged because more schools aren't doing it. Well, here's some of the things that are on the new standard, okay? Here we go. Peanuts, popcorn, tortilla chips, which is corn, granola bar, a fruit cup, and a 0-calorie flavored water, which means it's sweetened with some artificial sweetener. And this is the new standard of what nutrition looks like at America's schools. And this registered dietitian is outraged that more schools haven't implemented it yet.
I don't agree with many registered dietitians.
Yeah.
Finally, this cancer expert recommends genetic testing of all women over the age of 30. Of course they do. He's a cancer expert. He really believes that this BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene should be detected or should possibly be detected in all young women. What breaks the gene? Aspergillus does. It's a mold. So arguably, could antibiotics or alcohol or corn, like you were mentioning, which has fungus in it, cause the problem? Let's get up and go to the other set and we'll continue this.
After having read the fungus link in the diabetes book, it's eye-opening. It's allowed me to, I guess, feel the joy and the happiness to practice again. A lot of times with my patients, they come into my office and they have questions in regards to various things, and I don't have good answers for them. They've tried various medications, they've tried antibiotics and other things. And honestly, it's very, very difficult to look people in the eye and tell them, I just don't know. I just don't know how I can help you any further. After having read these books and after having spoken with Doug, I feel like there's hope again. I feel like, you know, maybe there's a way for me to now help people that before would have been, you know, basically hopeless. I have to prescribe the medications, the antifungals, the diflucan, the nystatin, and get them on these diets because it only makes sense. It's logical to me at this point. I feel like if I were to withhold that information from those people, I would not be, you know, upholding my oath that I've taken to help other people. And that's something that I've dedicated my life to. I can't not do it, I should say. I can't not do it in all good conscience. This is good science, and Doug has shown that.
So I was getting ready for today's show, and I pulled out my copy of the Fungus Link. This is the old cover, and when I got here, I was thumbing through it, and I totally forgot about this. We'll have to show it to you on a close-up in a second. That is the very first day I ever met Doug Kaufman. That had to be like 18 years ago. He came to Oklahoma City. There was a crowd of about 2,000 people at a church, and I was one of those 2,000 people, and I had been watching. It wasn't called Know the Cause back then, but it was Doug Kaufman's show. And so I began watching the show, and it was changing the way I thought about nutrition. I always loved nutrition, but I was missing something. I just wasn't getting the results that other people I knew were getting. Turns out it was the fungus link to disease that I was missing. And I was learning this from Doug's show every day. And finally the book came out and I began reading it, and it changed my life. And then I was privileged to be able to come and work for Doug, my hero, after a number of years of watching him on television. Well, the first thing that I got to do was travel with Doug, and the next thing I got to do was read all of the testimonials and the letters that people were writing physically, sending in the mail, and I got to read these. Guys, if you could just read the testimonials, just one day's worth of testimonials, it will change your whole perspective, your whole level of confidence about how powerful this strategy, these phase one strategies are. And Doug Kaufman, because of it, the way that he has implemented these strategies on television and the books, and it's being implemented in people's lives, I'm telling you, it will change your life forever. That's why there's such a huge following for Doug now, because people's lives are actually changing. Now, let me see this, Trevor. Have you guys been to knowthecause.com? You can now watch all of the shows right here on the phone. I'm going to check this out while you guys watch Kristen and Doug.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
What seeds are allowed on the phase one diet?
So the pseudo grains, they're not actually grains, but they're often referred to as grains because they're used the exact same way in cooking as grains would be. Quinoa is my favorite. It's a complete protein. All of these are actually complete proteins, the same as beef, chicken, or fish. And I use this as a substitute for rice. And I cook it in my vegetable broth, so it gives it a great neutral flavor that the kids and whole family will love. The Amaranth is a great breakfast cereal. It has twice as much calcium as milk does. I cook it in broth to make it kind of like grits, or I do it sweet and add my berries in it or apples. And then cream of buckwheat is great substitute for oats. So everyone that loves their oatmeal, cream of buckwheat is the way to go. It has a great effect on blood sugar, it has lots of fiber, and it's a great sweet cereal.
There are seeds allowable on Phase 1 diet. Now you know 3 more of them. Thank you.
I found Doug when he first came on the program here in Dallas area, and I had just gotten out of the hospital with the triple bypass surgery. And at that time I weighed 330 pounds, and I was watching him and found out also I was diabetic at the time, and started going on his Phase 1 diet. I even ordered the book, the weight loss book, and so on. And this was in May, and by November I had lost 60 pounds and was no longer considered diabetic by my doctor. My glucose level went from 360 to 99 on average per day. And I'm now completely off of diabetic medicine, and I am no longer taking high blood pressure medicine. I would say I actually 2 weeks from the time that I started watching Doug and really became convinced, and that's when I ordered the book, the weight loss book, and going and finding out what the true Phase 1 was. I probably, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't feel a whole lot different. It was, in fact, at times, the Hersheimer that we've talked about before, that I've heard back today, went into effect, and I just felt really terrible. But it was within another 3 or 4 days, it just seemed like that it was a veil was taken off my face, and I was breathing better. My wife said my color was coming better, and 5 or 6 months, people kept saying, well, what are you doing? You just look so great, and so on. I said, well, if I'd known if this made me look better, I would have done it a long time ago. And I just feel like a whole new person, and I hope to lose another 60 pounds. And I owe it all to Doug.
I'm a true believer in keeping things in good working order before they need repair. Prevention is truly the key to keeping almost anything as good as new. Too many of us take our bodies for granted until it's too late. But it's critical to be proactive about your health. No matter what your age, old or young, you just have to start. A nutritious diet lays the foundation for good health, but unfortunately these days food alone can't finish the job no matter what they want us to believe. That's where nutritional supplements come in. But how do you know where to start? I've boiled it down to my desert island supplements. 8 things I would never want to be without, and I think that everyone else should be taking too. These include pycnogenol, vitamin D3, coenzyme Q10, a good probiotic, fish oil, resveratrol, curcumin, and a multivitamin. I'm Dr. Fred Pescatore for Know the Cause.
That was a lot of information from Dr. Fred. Dr. Fred, you got 1 minute, go. And he rambles off all those. Kyle, what are each of those, starting with pycnogenol?
Pycnogenol is an antioxidant that comes from a pine tree, the bark of a pine tree, great for circulation, ADHD, and a number of issues related to inflammation.
Vitamin D3.
It's the vitamin C of this century. Everybody needs to take it. Everybody's low in it. Massively good for the immune system.
Coenzyme Q10.
Massively good for the heart health and all things energy.
Depleted, by the way, if you're on statin.
Must take it if you're on statin drugs. Ask your doctor about that. He'll tell you yes.
Probiotics, I guess.
Everybody knows Dr. O'Hara's.
Yeah.
We know these.
Fish oil.
Fish oil is an everything product. It's hair, skin, nails, circulation, heart, brain, everything.
Resveratrol.
It is the antifungal that grapes produce when they are exposed to fungus. So a grape exposed to fungus produces resveratrol, massive antifungal, also used in anti-aging medicine nowadays.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how cardiologists this is the buzzword for cardiologists, resveratrol, because they're finding in red wine and so forth that if they only knew it was an antifungal. Curcumin, a spice, huh?
A spice, a component of turmeric root. It is massive antioxidant, massive immune building, anti-cancer, anti-Alzheimer's. I think it goes on everybody's list. Make sure you get one that has a little black pepper in it as well for absorption.
A good multivitamin might be food, but there are a lot of people who still take a good multi and they love it.
Yeah, I love how you said that because I think the best multivitamin is food. That's why I go for things like greens powders that have multiple greens, multiple frozen berries and things like that.
John, our producer, wanted us to get up a couple of questions that people are asking a lot. Here's one. Linda asks, I have oral thrush. Now remember, folks, that's yeast growing in the mouth. Should I take nystatin or diflucan? What is the amount I should take? I would take Miselex troches. You're an old pharmacy guy.
The old lozenge
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
You hold a lozenge, a troche in your mouth 5 times a day or so. Your doctor may prescribe it. You just let it dissolve, and it is a potent antifungal. Nystatin, they have something that used to be called Nilstat, a liquid nystatin, 100 ml or 100
units per
ml.
milliliter. Yep.
Yeah, and so babies would take that, and your doctor will tell you how. Diflucan is a bloodstream antifungal. Diflucan comes in IVs, then 50, 100, or 200 milligram. And at the hospital, the doctors used to prescribe a couple hundred milligrams. You tend to load with diflucan. So maybe for 5 days you take it, and then you go every other day with it. Many people have been helped with this drug who didn't have just yeast problems. More and more we're seeing Sporanox, the toenail fungus drug, being used in cancer. They're finding that it's causing apoptosis or death to cancer cells. It is also preventing metastasis of cancer, an antifungal drug.
So if you had to choose one, would you choose the diflucan or the nystatin for the oral?
I would take nystatin.
Yeah.
I'd swish. A lot of people and spit it out. Other people and swallow it. I mean, you can swallow nystatin. It's no big deal. It is a stomach antifungal. So Miselex troches or the nystatin. Next question was, what lab does testing for fungus? Wow. You had the answer for that.
Well, you know, I'm not really confident in most of these laboratory tests for fungus because many times they're only testing for one type of fungus. Maybe they're only testing for the antibody, which just means you've been exposed to it sometime in your life, or maybe 1 or 2 mycotoxins, and there's thousands of mycotoxins that could cause a problem. So this is the book that I have, the Fungus Link one, but they don't have that version anymore. They have this version, which is a lot prettier and also has something called the fungal quotient.
Sure.
It's a questionnaire. It's saying, what about your symptoms? Have you taken antibiotics? Do you crave peanut butter? A lot of these, and at the end of it, you test it. You score yourself, and then you find out, you know what? I think there is a propensity, at least, for this to be fungal. There's a fungus link to my symptoms. There's at least an association.
That isn't diagnostic, but neither are the laboratory tests. You know,
That's true.
Unless we culture it out. Some laboratories spend weeks, you know, cutting into the wound and taking a little scraping and putting it on a plate and growing it out, but it takes several weeks. That's probably a good diagnostic way to do it. I like what you said. Laboratory tests that test for candida or other fungi test for the presence of antibodies you've made maybe 20 years ago to that. So your test results are going to come up high, but does that mean your symptoms now are due to candida, or was it 20 years ago that you were exposed to it and then you made higher titers of these antibodies to it? So laboratory tests apart and aside, Kyle helped invent the word FUPO. It's fungus until proven otherwise. The tough part of bacterial infections, if you don't get on an antibiotic, it can hurt you. But with fungus, change your diet for a period of time. There is olive leaf extract, oregano, curcumin, pycnogenol, all these things you've seen Kyle talk about that also have antifungal properties. Try it for a couple of weeks if this isn't an acute, dangerous problem, and see if you don't feel better. Talk to your doctor about that. Thank you, Kyle.
Love it.
Now don't go away. We'll be back. that's what so many spouses hear at night, right? A study out of the Mayo Clinic in 1999 proved that about 95% of all chronic sinus problems were not linked to bacteria, as doctors believe. They're linked to fungus. So sometimes just a change of diet and then use of nasal sprays like oregano spray or olive leaf spray will clear up the snoring altogether within a week.
My name is Nathan Webb. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I've been on Phase 1 for over 4.5 years. I'm on it for migraine headaches. I originally started to get rid of the headaches naturally and drug-free. I decided to skip all the drugs because I was afraid of the neurological problems it would cause. So I strictly did Phase 1. It took a long time. I continued to get headaches for the first few months, but every headache was a little less intense. Once I removed the blood sugar out of my bloodstream and out of my diet, all the grains, all of the alcohol, corn, pasta, bread, muffins, cakes, ice cream, all the extra fruits, things got substantially better. Stick with it. It works. Try it for 30 days, Phase 1. It's not fun, but it will prove that it works, and you can feel better too.
Boy, this show offers a lot of information, and it's different, folks. This isn't the typical health show that says vitamin C is good for you. Here, we have a warehouse full of it, buy some. This, as a matter of fact, I don't have any products. This is a show that tries to teach you. One thing that is so annoying to Kyle and me is when we pick up a research paper and we read it, and they're finally saying fungus. Finally, after all these decades, they're able to say, yeah, we're finding fungus in the blood of cystic fibrosis patients, of cancer patients, et cetera. And so they're saying it, but they say, but fungus only impacts the severely immunocompromised. Okay, so the word of the day then is immunocompromised or immunosuppressed. An immunosuppressed person is one whose immune system is down. But Kyle, there's an underbelly of this thing. Remember, being exposed to these mycotoxins, or these fungi that make these poisonous substances called mycotoxins, on a regular basis suppresses your immunity. If you live in a basement, your basement's damp, you do the laundry down there, the kids play down there, chances are they are immunosuppressed because of their living environment. If you're an alcoholic, or you were in the past, chances are you're immunosuppressed. Even some antibiotics might immunosuppress us. So it's fascinating. Corn, if you eat a lot of corn, if it's impregnated with these molds, you might be immunosuppressed, or peanuts.
Doug, of all of the things that you have taught over the years, this is one that I think should be in the top 1, 2, or 3 of important information about fungus. And it is just that fungus itself can cause immunosuppression. There are so, it really is funny now to read any report, even from people that I love. Yep. I'll read something about the thyroid and they'll talk about, well, you know, whenever you get to a certain age, your thyroid just starts diminishing. And nobody seems to be writing in those books, well, what causes that? It's not just age. Something is causing that. And every time they'll say, well, you know, the cause is atherosclerosis, or the cause is your heart, your blood pressure's too high. Well, yeah, but what caused that? And that has been the biggest eye-opener for me over the 15 years that I've been following this whole plan and advising other people to think about this plan. Honest to goodness, if we can get this immunocompromised thing down and understand, let's get rid of the fungus first, let's get rid of the mycotoxins, by the way, the fungal poisons that themselves are immunosuppressive. Let's get rid of those first and see if the immunocompromise takes care of itself. I promise you, so many of these antifungals are so safe, and what they're doing is they're just killing fungus, and that's it. And if we can just deal with that, but so many of the times doctors are afraid, they've been trained by their pharmaceutical reps, don't give antifungals because it's only for those who are already immunocompromised.
Oh, and this frustrates me. Yeah. There's a new article John gave me at lunch the other day, a brand new antifungal on the market. These antifungals tend to end with the letters AZOLE, right? So ketoconazole is Nizoral. Fluconazole is diflucan. So we have two names to confuse the lay people. But there's a brand new azole drug, and it says, it's great if you have immunocompromised patients. If you breathe fungus on a regular basis, you're immunocompromised. Do enough of this, you'll become immunocompromised. But you don't get papers published unless you expound on that. Oh no, this isn't for everybody. This is for your immunocompromised. And then we go on to say, like AIDS patients or cancer patients getting cancer therapy. So your therapies compromise our immune system. It's so unbelievable to me. I would consider, if we're living in a moldy environment, if we drink enough alcohol, eat enough food that's contaminated with mycotoxins, or we've been on antibiotics for a long period, many rounds in our life, we may be immunocompromised. So those drugs, home run for us. Just don't let them confuse you, folks. Try it if your doctor will let you. I think you'll enjoy these antifungals because they really work for many things. Thank you, Kyle.
Good.
In 1993, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Growing up, I didn't really take care of myself. And then when I started to want to have children, people would come up and say, "Are you even going to be able to have children?" And that would really discourage me. And in about 2005, I was watching Doug Kaufman, and everything just started to change. The sugar got under control, and everything just started to come alive for me. I felt better, and in 2007, I had my first daughter, and in 2008, a second daughter, and 2012, our third. So we've been blessed. Follow Doug's phase 1 diet as closely as possible. Olive leaf extract, the oregano oil. Caprylic acid was one of the first I ever took. Prayer, of course, that can be done. You need to revamp your body to prepare itself for pregnancy, and that'll make it easier.
Did you know that your blood pressure medication can have serious drug mugging effects on you? Blood pressure medications mug your body of essential nutrients like CoQ10, B6, folic acid, even calcium, which your bones need. Deficiencies can open a can of worms in terms of other symptoms you might get. So if you're taking a water pill or a blood pressure medication, please ask your doctor if it's all right to supplement with those nutrients.
This is the point of the show where I normally thank guests for coming in. Thank you, Dr. Fred. Thank you, Kyle, for being here. But folks, I often forget to thank the most important people. They're you in the audience. Your eyes watching the show and listening to the show, your ears, really make this show popular. We had no idea until last week. We found out from some media people how large this show is. Thank you, each and every one of you, for watching and enjoying.
Marilyn wrote into Doug, and she said, "I'm extremely grateful for your show. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease 8 years ago. I had asked God to help me because I was really getting frightened, and that's when I discovered the cause. You know, the worst part about being sick, besides the chronic pain, is that you stop dreaming. You can't be dependent upon anymore, or even offer to sit your new granddaughter because you don't know how you're going to feel on the day that you're needed." As I sit here writing this response, happy tears are running down my cheeks because I feel some hope that I haven't felt for so long. Please tell Doug thank you, and for taking the fear from my heart. That's from Marilyn, Doug, and she wanted us to tell you that very thing, and this is the deal. The fear was taken away. That's a huge part of Know the Cause.
Thank you, guys. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.